G'day guys, Solid here and welcome back to another episode of Bike Banter. We're in the garage and we're going to try and get through all your viewer comments and questions for the month. But forgive me if it's a bit noisy as I'm out in the garage, so that means lawnmowers, birds, V8s, diesel engines all going off, but we'll get through it. So let's dive straight into the questions. So for those of you wondering what's going on with my right eye, I had a disagreement with a staple gun, and let's just say I should have worn some safety glasses. That was about a week ago, so that's why I've held off on making a video because my eyes looked a bit manky, but it's getting better now. So let's get on with the video. So I've busted out the trusty iPad to get through the questions. The first one is from Razeg or Rizeg, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. That's a common theme in this video actually. Me not being able to pronounce all your names. Anyway, he's saying he loves this bike news, so thanks mate, appreciate it. I always enjoy being told if the videos are worthwhile or not. It helps me know what content to kind of put forward next time. So thanks for the compliment. So the next comment is from Biker Bits and he's saying, great stuff, Solid, cheers mate. He likes a new backdrop compared to the green screen. It's good to know, so do I. That's a question to everyone viewing as well. If you've seen last week's video, do you prefer that backdrop to the old green screen method for adventure news? I certainly do, but I'd like to know your thoughts, and clearly Mark does as well, so that's good to know. And he's saying, either way, the videos are great and really good for our community. Cheers, Mark. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. That's high praise coming from such a popular dual sport channel such as yours. And short story time for Mark, if you are watching. I've actually followed your channel since the early days. I had an accident. I got hit at about 100 kilometers an hour in 2012 on a motorcycle. And through the recovery phase midway through 2012, I stumbled upon off-road riding and particularly your channel, and I really gravitated to the down-to-earth presentation, the no bullcrap. You weren't trying to peddle anything, and it was just really good Aussie content, and I loved it, especially watching you go through the process of getting the DR650 and learning to ride off-road, but also your motorcycle camping ideas early on were very helpful for starting me on that journey. So I just like to thank you for what you actually do for the community, because it's an absolutely great channel. And anyone that's watching this that hasn't seen any of Biker Bits stuff, I'd encourage you to head over there because there's some great content. Anyway, I'd say that's about a sufficient amount of smoke that I've blown up Mark's ass there. So let's move on to the next question. So the next comment is from YouTuber, and he's saying, in my opinion, it would be great to have the 450RL with the same maintenance and oil change intervals as the Yamaha WR250R. Well, I'm going to agree and disagree with you here, mate. I think it'd always be nice to have a bike with a longer service interval. That's always a want, to do less and less maintenance. It reduces cost and effort. So I know some people like working on those bikes, but I don't like always having to change filters and oil. That's a big reason why I prefer dual sports, and it's probably why you're bringing it up as well. But I think it's just a missed opportunity here from Honda, at least here in Australia. So I know Americans, you prefer the 450L a lot more than we do here, but that's because you're really restricted on what bikes you can get in the enduro range with license plates. Here, basically every enduro bike comes with a license plate. So the CRF 450X came with a license plate here. So the 450L really isn't too much of a difference other than road comfort and slightly longer service intervals. So in saying that, I really think I would disagree with your comment, mate, with this needs longer service intervals. I think Honda need to stick with this bike for the enduro world, and they need to focus on making a proper, capable dual sport. Think of an XR400 with 6 speeds and EFI, so it's got more torque and a little more power than a 250, but not so highly strung like a 450 Enduro, so you've got massive service intervals, gobs of power that you just can't use unless you're an Enduro god, and a price tag that makes your eyes water every time you look at the receipt. So that's my idea. I think we need an XR400 brought back from the dead. I'd be first in line if Honda did something like that. So apologies if you can hear the lawn mowing in the background. We're just gonna have to push through it. So the next comment is from Fred the Barber, and he's talking about my Adventure News Triumph Trident coverage, saying he was wondering where I was going with it. Sometimes I ramble so much that I wonder where I'm going with it as well, so I can't blame you there. but he's saying he would like to see a lower seat height if they did do a Trident adventure bike. He'd also like to see a single round headlight like the Scrambler 1200. I agree, mate. I loved what Husqvarna did with the Norden 901, so I think that single round headlight retro look is great. Should also keep costs down as well. He's saying that they should make it a 675 and call it the Tiger Cub. I think that's a bloody brilliant name, mate. That's great, the Tiger Cub. So great naming there, mate. I think Triumph should probably hire you for the naming department. So let me know what you think down below. Are you also looking forward to a cheaper Triumph adventure bike? I think they really need it. I was looking at the price of the Triumph range. Now, I went and test rode the Tiger 900 GT Pro, so that's a road-based version with the cast wheels and it's more orientated for touring. And I just about died when my mate told me the price at the dealership. It's roughly $25,000 all said and done with all the options on it. So that's absolutely crazy. That's more than my car by a long shot. So I don't know about you, but I really can't be bothered paying that much for a motorcycle. My kind of pain threshold for a motorcycle is around the $15,000. And even then, I really have to think about it. I always prefer getting cheaper second-hand bikes, but let me know what you think down below. Are you looking forward to a more affordable Triumph Tiger, or are you happy ponying up for the big bucks and getting a big adventure bike? So the next comment is from DRZ Days, and he's saying, damn, how many bikes have you bought and sold in the last couple of years? Probably 4 or 5, mate. I have gone through a lot, but that's due to needing money or medical illnesses. So I've had quite a turbulent couple of years. So sold the F700 GS, then I sold the WR250R, then I bought and sold a 1200 Sportster, then I bought the V-Star 1300 and now I'm selling that. And shortly I should be buying a WR250R. So that's 5 bikes within the space of 3 years. So that's quite a lot, but it comes down to your philosophy as well, I guess, in owning a bike. Some guys like buying a bike and just riding the absolute wheels off it and keeping it forever. And that's a fine method. And then there's the other type of guy that likes to swap and change and try new things. I kind of switch between both. If I find a really great bike like the F700 GS or the WR250R, I keep them around for a long time, unless it's something like a money emergency, which happened with the GS, or it's something like sickness where I'm just not going to be able to ride the bike for a long time and it's going to cost me money to keep it in the garage. Those were the only reasons I sold them, otherwise I would still have them. But I also love trying out new bikes, so I do swap through and change bikes quite often. I've lost count of how many bikes I've owned in my times, but it's quite a few. So it is what it is, mate. I always like trying new things, so you'll probably see plenty more new bikes in the future on this channel. The next comment is from Expeditionary Ranger, and he's saying good stuff, and he's talking about recommending a 1450 gearing for the WR250R. I'm actually going for 1345 on mine, as that's what I had on mine previously. So stock on a WR250R, at least here in Australia, is 1343 from memory. So I only go up 2 teeth on the back, so that gives me a little more pulling power up high at about 110 kilometers. It gives me enough power to overtake when I'm loaded up with camping gear. Other than that, it really doesn't do too much. I don't like my gearing super low because I do a lot of highway riding on my 250R, and I found that if you go more than 45 teeth on it, you're really starting to rev the crap out of it on long road stints. So some of you guys might not do too much riding on the highway above 110 loaded up. I've had to do 6-hour days on the WR250R at 110 Ks, and I can tell you, if you had more than 1345 gear ratio on your bike, it would be absolute misery. I think that's about the limit for me for comfort. More than that and it'd be revving too high. I think the 1450, that would be an absolute fantastic single track weapon. It'd be a great rock crawler, but you'd really be losing the top end at those kind of numbers for your front sprocket. But hey, if it works for you, great. And 1347, you're also suggesting there. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. That's probably the best compromise between a single track weapon and still be able to do road riding. But I prefer 1345, but hey, everyone's different. Good recommendations, and you can always try it out, you know. Sprockets are cheap, so give them a go, see what happens. So the next comment is from Jeff. He's a long-time viewer of the channel, so thanks for the comment, mate. And he's saying, I think you're heading in the right direction with the WR250R. Cheers, so do I. I'm really looking forward to getting it. He's saying, I can't wait till I see a video out with a new bike out in the bush. Keep well and safe riding. So cheers, mate, and so can I. I'm going absolutely crazy. I really want to get out there in the bush. For me, riding out bush is a real therapeutic thing. I'm always in my own head a lot. I'm an introvert. You probably gathered that from all these videos that I'm quite introspective kind of guy. So getting out in the bush just clears my head. You know, getting out on the bike, it focuses everything in the immediate world. You forget about all your problems, and there's something really therapeutic about just getting out in the bush. Yes, I'm a country boy. I grew up on the farm, you know, with straw in my mouth, a slack-jawed yokel with a cowboy hat, but I do love the bush. It's in my blood, so every time I'm out there I just feel at peace. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there, but I've got to warn you guys, it could be a little while longer before I get this bike. My mate who's selling it to me, he's really stressed out at the moment and he's really busy, so I don't want to push the issue. I'm happy to just wait until he's got the time to give me the bike. So I'm just going to let that sit there. So you probably won't see me out in the next couple of weeks on the bike. So it might be a little bit longer until you see me on the 250R, but I just wanted to warn you. But thanks for the comment, mate. And yes, I hear the bush calling, and it's calling hard. So the next one is from V. Alorde. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I butchered that name. I'm really not good at this, am I? And he's talking about me getting fit. So I think that's a really important part of riding off-road, is maintaining some level of fitness. Now, I know a lot of guys just don't have the time, and that's fine. But I'm saying if you do have the time, do something, at least a little bit. You know, you don't have to go out there and be some CrossFit junkie. You don't have to enter world's strongest man or be some amazing ripped dude like The Rock. But just doing little things to kind of up your fitness a little bit more than what it normally would be is a great idea. And he's got some really great advice, and I'm calling it the wisdom of the month. And he's saying slow and steady wins the race. Life's a marathon, not a sprint. And I completely agree, mate. If only I would listen to this advice more often, as I'm that guy that always does things at 110% and I pay for it later. So this is great advice. Especially in my early 20s, I was one of those gym junkies, always trying to be huge and bulky, and I went hard and fast rather than thinking about my joints and my tendons and longevity in my body for my life. I was worried about how big I could get my biceps, so I really paid for that later on. But it's also something I still struggle with now. When I hop on the bicycle, I've got to rein myself in so I don't injure my shoulder and make it worse, or the nerve damage in my leg. I've really got to always be mindful that it's a marathon and not a sprint. So very, very wise words, mate. And something that I think everyone could probably get something out of. So great comment. So the next comment is from Peter Chris, and he's talking about an older video of mine. It's one of my favorite rides. It's dualsport beach blast, I think I called it. We went and did a beach ride here in Western Australia. It was just fantastic, riding through the dunes and along the ocean. It was just beautiful. And he was asking what PSI I use in the sand. So before I go into what PSI I use, which I thought would be helpful for the newer riders getting into this, just know that it's kind of up to the person what pressures you use. There's no hard, this is exactly the PSI you have to use. It's more like ballpark figures. So use what you're comfortable with. It really depends on whether you're running tubes and whether you're running rim locks or you're running tubeless tire setups. As tubeless tires, you can't go as softer pressures as you do with tube tires. So keep that in mind, mate. So if you do have tube tires, and this is what I'm talking about. So if you've got a dual sport, you're running tubes, then this is specifically what I'm talking about. For sand, very, very deep, soft sand, I run 10 PSI, but that's with rim locks on the front and the back of my bike. Now, some people might argue that I don't need rim locks on a 250 as there's not enough power to spin the wheels. I just have it on there as a precaution. It's better to be safe than sorry. So around 10 PSI if it's getting super, super soft. You know, the kind of stuff where you spin your wheels and you go down, you know, pegs deep in an instant. So 10 PSI. If it's just regular sand, it's not too deep, I probably run around 15 PSI, the same as what I would have in my tires if I'm doing regular off-road riding. So as soon as I hit the proper off-road dirt part of the riding, I'm at 15, maybe 15, 16 PSI, something around there, with heavy duty tubes and rim locks. If I'm just doing dirt roads, I really don't change from road pressures. So that might be 30 PSI in the rear and 25 up front. But that's not an exact rule. I know some guys, like riding with Tom, he chucks 40 PSI in his tires. And then there's some guys that just ride super low pressures all the time, like 20 PSI front and back on the road. But that, in my opinion, just destroys your tires. So that's my PSI rent: 10 in the sand, 15 in the dirt, 30 on the road. That's my rule. So thanks for sticking with me to the end, guys. If you've got any comments or questions for next month's episode, chuck them down below. Also, I'm trying to put together a video for the guys and girls who work full time and they also have a family to manage on the weekends. So they don't have a whole lot of time to dive into all the research that you really need to do to educate yourself in off-road riding. So I thought I'd put together a short video that just has everything you need to know to get into off-road riding. So if you've got any tips, tricks, or ideas that you think would be great in a video like that, chuck them down below and I'll try and fit them into that video. And as always, guys, I've been Solid and I'll see you in the next video, and shiny side up.